Hello everybody, welcome. This is a channeling with Alan Rickman, and it's one that a lot of you have been waiting for a long time. I have to say that having mentioned that I was going to be channeling Alan on my social media pages, I have been overwhelmed with people coming forward saying, oh my God, I loved him. I loved him. So excited that you're going to be linking into his energy. And he was absolutely universally loved. And he seems to be one of these people that when he passed over, nobody had a bad word to say about him. So I think that is the measure of the man, to be honest. And we know him particularly for the numerous roles that he played as a multi-talented actor. I came to love Alan in the film Truly, Madly, Deeply. He was stunning in that. Love Actually is one of my favourite films, and indeed we're sort of putting this first video out with Alan around Valentine's Day, so there's a nod to Love Actually. He also played great villains, didn't he? The villain in Die Hard I particularly loved. Many of you, of course, love him particularly in his role in Harry Potter. Now, I have to confess here that I have never read a Harry Potter book. I've never watched any of the Harry Potter films, much to Alan's horror. Although he's got a very dry sense of humour. So I am going to get myself up to speed with Harry Potter before I talk to him particularly about his role within Harry Potter, because I know there's a lot to it, and I would like to have done that before I ask him questions on that. But to be perfectly honest, there is plenty to talk about with him over and above Harry Potter. He was so much more than that. So I want to just firstly show you the photograph that I've selected of him. There we go, there's Alan. I don't know whether that's a nod to the Sense and Sensibility era. He was in Sense and Sensibility as well, played some amazing roles in period drama, but I love that picture of him. I love all the pictures of him, to be honest. And one of you today, he doesn't mind us having a bit of a laugh, by the way, described him as the thinking woman's idol. And I think he was that. In the UK, we have this expression, the thinking woman's crumpet, which is probably terribly unpolitically correct to say these days, but, you know, he was. Women really loved him, and he seemed to get women very hot under the collar. So, and he was having a joke with me earlier because he was sort of saying, yeah, and that's quite an achievement for a dead man to still be doing that. And yes, it is, to be honest, but I think it just shows the power of his physical presence in all seriousness. But we're going to talk to him about desire and sexuality today with a nod to Valentine's Day. But I do know that he wants to talk about intelligence as being sexy and the mind as being a sexy tool. And there is definitely a nod to what has already come through from another member of the Heart Squad, because Alan is joining what I call the Heart Squad, who are a group of souls who've passed to spirit, who are coming back to teach us something. So my work, my channeling work, is very much about what can we learn from these people? What can we learn from them? And they were always about helping to serve humanity in some way, whether it was through music, film, writing, dance, whatever genre they chose to bring happiness and uplift people and bring a message forward. But it's as though that role still is in existence, even though they are spirit. So if you want to look at the other people that I've done so far on with the Heart Squad, there is a playlist up on my YouTube channel, Amanda Ellis. But yeah, there is a nod, this whole thing about intelligence being sexy. He said that's why she's got her glasses on today, guys. No, it's not. I'm actually tired, Alan. He knows that, because I'm very tired today, and I nearly didn't do this video because I'm a little bit headachy. And Alan said to me, he said, no, the show must go on. And I thought, yeah, you're right, Alan, the show must go on, because there's something in that to talk about. So it might not be a long video today, but we're going to do part 1, because Alan is also saying to me that we need to do it in parts. So there's a part 1 and there's a part 2. Like any good play, there is an interval in the middle where you can go and get your ice cream and your popcorn or whatever. So yeah, this is part 1. But no, this thing about intelligence being sexy, you see, Prince also talked about that in one of the channelings I've done with Prince. And I do want to just mention, before I get fully into Alan's energy, that Alan died in 2016. And it was that year, if you remember, where an awful lot of celebrities passed to spirit, an inordinate number. And I was actually just reading up about it before I came on to do this video, and somebody talked about it being an annus horribilis for celebrities, 2016, because we lost some great names, one of whom was Prince. I can't even begin to mention all of the people that died, but I'm just going to mention a few, because there's a few Heart Squad members, but equally, in fact, all these people I've written down, I'm realising they all could be Heart Squad members in different ways, but I haven't necessarily done them all. Prince died in 2016. George Michael died in 2016. I've done George Michael. Muhammad Ali is somebody that I want to do, and I've been thinking about doing for a while. Leonard Cohen died in 2016. He's a name that's often requested on this channel to channel. Gene Wilder, who was an amazing actor as well. Carrie Fisher, some UK references here. Terry Wogan, Ronnie Corbett, Victoria Wood. All people actually looking at that list, particularly the actors amongst them, and the musicians, who were chameleon-like in nature. And Alan was as well. So there is this sort of chameleon-like energy. Oh, and of course, David Bowie. Sorry, how could I forget David Bowie? Because David Bowie's energy is sort of here as well. So I'm reaching for sprays because I make sprays. My team make them. And this is a David Bowie spray that actually is sold out now. But I reached for it today when I was trying to get ready for this video with Alan, and I thought, I wonder whether Alan liked David. But then I looked it up, and Alan Rickman and David Bowie died within the same week as each other, the same week. And straight away I heard that they were of the same soul group, okay? And in fact, I feel that a lot of these celebrities that died in 2016, they were of the same soul group. They were a group of very special souls that came in not just to entertain us, but to uplift us, to inspire us, and to stir our sort of creative juices. So yeah, there's a nod to that crew of 2016 who all went back to base camp together, within weeks or months of each other. But certainly David Bowie and Alan Rickman feel very linked energetically. And also, I want to say here, because I've already channeled David Bowie and I've already spoken to Alan about what I'm about to say, is there's something here about the privacy and the sacredness of the death moment. Because both David and Alan withdrew really from the public eye. They were both actually quite private people, even though they were very public personas. They never sort of sought, either of them, sort of the celebrity circuit out particularly. But at the moment of death, it was a shock when you heard that David Bowie had died, and it was a shock when you heard that Alan Rickman had died, because it was very private. They kept it very private. Certainly with David Bowie, he was talking about the fact that, well, death is just this natural transition, that there's no need for all the drama around it. When it's your time, it's your time. Go gracefully into the night, is what he's saying, because I feel David here as well. And very much the same with Alan. And I want to I want to just play something. I've got my laptop here. I just want to play something that I've just found on YouTube. And because, as I say, I was in this vibe, am I going to do it today? Am I not? And I thought, just go and listen to a bit of Alan Rickman and you'll know whether you're meant to do it. And there's a video here, and it's where Alan is talking about truly, madly, deeply. Now, he's just standing there with a microphone talking to an audience. Beside him is a bottle of red wine. Well, he'd already told me he loved his wine, bit of a wine connoisseur. That came through a few weeks ago when I was tuning into him. So I love the fact there's a bottle of red wine by Alan, and actually it looks like it's unopened, Alan. He's saying, yeah, that was very unusual. But no, in all seriousness, just listen to this short little excerpt. It's probably 30 seconds, and I hope you're going to be able to hear it. But it's just a stunning thing for him to have said. And this was said a few years before he died.
In all sorts of ways, especially in terms of, something we were talking about earlier, about what choices you make in life. If your life is going to be snapped off at the height of your creative powers, then you better, seems to me, make good choices along the way, because you're going to be measured by them one way or another.
Did you hear that? I mean, did you hear his voice, for one thing? I'll talk about his voice in a moment. But he's basically saying, if your life is going to be snapped off at the height of its creative powers, you better make damn sure that you make the right choices leading up to that moment, because you will be remembered for the choices that you make. Wow. One, there is a knowingness within his soul when he was saying that he was going to die early, because he wasn't old, not in today's standards, but equally to do with the choices that you make. I'm sort of in awe of Alan, actually, and his intelligence and his depth, real depth. There's so much I want to talk to him about. I want to talk to him about culture, history, beauty, but I am going to go through some of the questions that you have sent in. But before I do that, I do want to just tell you what I've been getting anyway. A nod to the fact that his numerology is a 25-7. 25 shows him as being somebody with a very sharp analytical mind. I suspect his powers of memory were brilliant. I mean, they'd have to be, wouldn't they, for an actor? But a very sharp analytical mind goes with 25. It's actually the energy of somebody who can be quite scientific as well in terms of their approach to life. And I feel as though he approached his work a bit like a science. It was an art, but it was a bit like a science, in that when he entered into a new role, he researched it, he became it. A bit like the modern day equivalent would be Daniel Day-Lewis, who, I'm sure I'm right in saying Daniel Day-Lewis gets so immersed in his role, he becomes the role. I think he's on record as saying he's intolerable to live with when he takes on a role, because he is that 24/7. And I feel as though Alan was sort of that deep as well. So 25 adds up to 7. 7 is the mystic. It is linked into Neptune. It's linked into going deep, because Neptune rules the sea. So this is a deep man who was also able to stir deep, deep emotions within people. And the thing that was so fantastic about Alan, and he can still do it, is the fact that he was able to stir deep emotions that were of different natures, dependent on the film and the vehicle that he chose. So, for example, within Die Hard, you really hated him, you despised him, because he was this horrible villain. Within Truly Madly Deeply, with Juliet Stevenson, who's in the film as well, the depths of pain in terms of loss of somebody that you love and not being able to let go was profound. In Love, actually, just the awkwardness, and the humour. I'm saying awkward because of that classical clip of him where he's buying the jewellery, for the lover or the potential lover. And it's with Rowan Atkinson. It's classic. If you haven't ever seen that clip, watch it. It's just life affirming because it's just so funny. But yeah, deep guy. He was born the 21st of February 1946, and he died the 14th of January 2016. So 7 actually links into the turquoise energy, and 14 is also a turquoise energy. So that's interesting because turquoise is the colour of the poet, the colour of the artist, the colour of somebody who has to do that. Otherwise they just burn out in life. So even if they're doing a sort of humdrum job, they would still have to do it creatively. Turquoise is also linked into the Aquarian age, and I feel as though he was, as well as many of this 2016 crew that died around the same time, his soul tribe, they were way showers for the Aquarian age. So people say he was an actor. He was so much more than that. I also want to do a shout out, because I think it's something that's extremely impressive in this day and age, that he met his life partner, Rita, when they were 18 and 19, and they were together for 50 years. And I've made a note here that he married her 1 year before he died. So he was with this lady for 50 years. They never felt the need to marry. 1 year before he dies, he marries her. And again, this is just a nod, guys, to the fact that the soul always knows. Even if the human mind doesn't consciously know that exit point in terms of incarnation is closing in, the soul always knows. So at soul level, he knew he was going probably way before he even got diagnosed. And so that it was important to him to tie up the loose ends in terms of giving her the status that she was his wife. But yeah, 50 years. So how interesting that a man who, to be honest, is sort of desired over by many women, and I'm sure he would have had women, you know, coming onto him in life because he had that vibration. He had within him an energy of loyalty, of integrity, of dignity, of respect for women. I actually feel he was a great supporter of women. A great lover of women, but not in terms of being a lover, you know, in terms of mucking around with women, being unfaithful. There's nothing like that in his energy field. What is in his energy field is integrity and faithfulness and loyalty. He's saying, don't make me sound like a dog. He has got a great sense of humour. You do make me laugh, Alan. And I have to say, just because he's here, you see, and I started off today feeling a bit harassed because I've got so much going on in my life and a bit headachy, but it's just lifting because his energy is just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And we need more Alans in this world, okay? We need people like Alan in this world. And the thing is, you see, he is still in the world. Even though he's not here with us anymore, he is still in the world. He died of pancreatic cancer, which is a silent killer. He had one of the most beautiful voices that's ever been heard in my books, but not just in my books. Everybody says that. And I want to say something about his voice, because his voice has been scientifically measured. In 2008, a pair of researchers who were linguists were tasked with analysing voice samples from more than 50 people to determine what makes the perfect human voice. And for men, it turns out that it was Alan Rickman. Sorry, it's just flicked to. Isn't it annoying when you're reading something and then it moves into a different thing? Hold on a minute, guys. Okay. For men, it turns out that it's a combination of Alan Rickman and Jeremy Irons. Oh yeah, Jeremy Irons has got a lovely voice as well. Do you know Jeremy Irons, Brideshead Revisited? They say, as humans, we instinctively know which voices send shivers down our spine and which voices make us shudder with disgust. The emotional responses... the emotional responses panelists had the voices were surprising and go some way to explaining how voiceover artists or radio DJs are selected. Helen Mirren seemed to confirm this when she spoke about Rickman following his death, saying, Alan was a towering person, physically, mentally, and as an artist. He was utterly distinctive, with a voice that could suggest honey or hidden stiletto blade and the profile of a Roman emperor. Yeah. He was very well respected by his peers, and he obviously starred alongside many leading ladies in particular, and the one leading lady that he was bringing to my attention, over and above many that I'm sure he loved, was Judi Dench. And I was thinking, why Judi Dench? Of all the women that he worked with, he worked with Emma Thompson a lot, for example, had a great friendship with her, but no, Judi Dench. And then what Alan was saying is Judi Dench, again, has got one of these voices. She's got one of these voices that is just very commanding, very resonant with human emotion. And so there's something about his voice. So I'm going to bring him through, and that's the first question we're going to ask, okay? Now my feet have gone cold, so I'm going to have to go and put my slippers on. Hold on. Which is sometimes what happens when spirit is here. He's saying, yeah, you've got to put the groundwork in. A nod to feet. Right, let's bring him in. I'm using the Rainbow Bridge, which is just a tool that helps me connect to spirit. Although he is here, but this is just for you as well. So let's just take a look at how Alan looks today. Okay. He's showing me himself as a older man, maybe a couple of years before he died, that sort of age. And he is wearing a white shirt. Am I allowed to say, Alan, a sort of nondescript pair of slacks? He's saying you can say what you want. Yeah, it's just like, it's all very tailored, quite neat, but, you know, a little bit nondescript, you know. So I don't know whether, I feel as though his clothes were important to him to a degree, in terms of he liked things that were quite well tailored and fitted, and I feel he liked things that felt nice, you know, good quality cotton or linen or something like that, but he wasn't extravagant in terms of the way that he chose to dress. He said he allowed the extravagance to come out through the role and the roles that he played. So him as Alan, just, you know, Alan the everyday man, although he wasn't an everyday man, chose to dress quite simply. So that's how he's showing himself to me. And for some reason, he's showing me himself with a pair of glasses on, actually. And he's got like these pieces of paper in front of him. So he's saying he's been doing his homework on me as well. Okay, all right. What does he mean by that? Okay, no, what he means by that is, what do you mean by that? You've been doing your homework on me. Oh, I can't say that, Alan. That sounds... He said, I'll say it. He said, the British are terrible at accepting compliments. He's saying to me, I only work with the best, which is very humbling. Thank you, Alan. Okay. So I think he's looked into my work and my back catalogue, and he's happy to come through. So that is, I'm very embarrassed by that, but I'm going to say it because Alan's right. Us British are not very good at accepting compliments. And he's saying, you see, the thing is, Amanda, he's saying here in spirit, he said, there's none of that. He said, we all appreciate that we are all divine and that we all have these amazing gifts and talents and abilities. And indeed, that's why we often choose to go down to earth in the first place, to share them with the world. But then it's as though when you arrive in the world, particularly in certain countries such as Britain, it's as though you're asked to keep your light very small and hide it for some reason. And he's saying this was always a little bit of an anathema to me anyway, because I tried to bring out the best in other people, and I tried to mentor others who were, he's showing me like young actors because he says, I always could see the potential in people. And to be able to see the potential in people means that you have to big them up to a degree. You have to make them realise that they're actually quite good at what they do. So he's saying, you're good at what you do. Thank you, Alan. Okay. So he's talking about that he enjoyed mentoring others. Okay. He's saying, I actually enjoyed that as much as actually acting and all of the other jobs that I did through life. It was actually part of my soul mission, not just to be the star on the silver screen, but to be the one that helped other people to value themselves enough to realise that they too could be up there. And I'm getting a nod towards Daniel Radcliffe in particular, who I do know he did mentor, and he's showing me Daniel, and he's very much sort of like showing me that he still hovers over Daniel for some reason. Okay, it's as though he's saying he's a bit like a godson. That's the sort of energy that I'm feeling with him. It's a bit like a godson type energy, where you sort of sign up to watch over somebody, but also look out for their spiritual health. That's what a godparent does. And I'm sure he wasn't his godparent, but you know, that's sort of the analogy that he's giving me with Daniel. Okay. Because he's saying Daniel can sometimes be literally like in the lion's den, and he's saying Hollywood, of course, can be like the lion's den. So he's saying the ones that have particular light, you would call it, on your channel, need watching over and need protecting from the lion's den. Okay, so that is that. Okay, and now he's wanting to also sort of even it up, because now I'm being shown Emma Watson, who I believe was also the other young girl in Harry Potter. So there's definitely a vibe towards Harry Potter and the two young stars, although he's now showing me the third. I don't know the guy's name. Sorry, Alan. The one with the ginger hair. It's like the three of them, those three young actors, maybe because of the age they were. Did you feel a sort of guardianship duty? He's saying, yes, I did. He said, but it was also because I could see the potential in all three. So there's definitely a nod to those three actors and actresses. Okay. Can we go to some questions, Alan? Yeah, okay. I printed out these pictures. I will just show that before I go to the questions. Look at this one. He's got some great quotes, Alan. This one says, a film, a piece of theatre, a piece of music, or a book can make a difference. It can change the world. Very true. Look at this one. You see? I could actually stare at his face all day, and I mean, I don't mean that stupidly. What I mean by that is I feel as though he's saying you can see somebody's character in their face. And he's saying it's so sad because most of the time people don't even look each other in the face anymore. And they certainly don't look each other in the eyes. They don't look each other in the eyes. They don't look at each other in the face. They're all looking down at their bloody phone, he's saying. He's saying, but if you look up and you actually look into somebody's face and you see the lines and you see the emotion and you see the scars, you see the story. He says we're all so immersed in our own stories that we're forgetting other people's stories and where they've come from that's made them who they are. And he's saying if we could only look into somebody's face and truly see them, truly appreciate them. He's reminding me of something that I looked at myself yesterday on social media. Somebody had put a video up of, it was like one of these makeovers, but this was a makeover with a difference. The three people that were being maked over all had terrible disfigurement on their face. One lady was a burns victim. Obviously her face was very, very scarred. Somebody else looked like they'd been attacked with a knife. Very, very scarred, quite disfigured face. And the makeover was to do with, it showed the before picture and then it showed them afterwards with all the makeup and the false eyelashes and whatever. And when they saw their reflection, i.e. that they looked normal, whatever the hell normal is, they were overcome with emotion that, my God, I can look that beautiful. But, you know, I saw that video and I thought, but you were beautiful before. And this is what he's saying to me. He's saying, I would have got them to look in the mirror with their scarred face and to have seen the beauty with that. Because I'm feeling very emotional here, because he's saying, because I would have shown them that they had survived it, that they had survived that attack, they had survived that disease that had ravaged them, that they were a warrior, that when they look in the mirror, they shouldn't cover it up with powder and paint, that they should run their fingers into the grooves and feel the scars and be proud that they have survived that and get in touch with that warrior energy that they have within them. He said beauty comes in many, many forms, and it doesn't come in a conventional form. He said that's what's so beautiful about love. What's so beautiful about love is the fact that you fall in love with somebody, and often they aren't always a conventional beauty, but to you they are your world. To you you see them and they are magnificent. So yeah, it's very true, isn't it, Alan? It's very true. And he's saying again, the people that fall in love with a voice, that fall in love with a sense of humour, that fall in love with the soul of somebody. He said, let's celebrate that. Let's get away from this culture of manufactured beauty, which makes everybody look the same anyway. He's saying the worst thing for an actor, but not just an actor, he's saying the worst thing for all of us is just to want the same old, for everybody to look the same, for everybody to behave the same. Alan, I was starting to pick up a vibration a few days ago about artificial intelligence in one of the readings that I did linked into the USA election, actually. One of the candidates is very not anti, but trying to get a grip on artificial intelligence. And he said, yeah, I know the one you're speaking of. It's Andrew Yang. He's saying he's right to be worried, because he's saying it's as though what Alan's showing me is two different ends of an axis. And on one end of the axis is the arts and culture and beauty and magnificence and freedom of expression and flow. And it's almost like this beautiful box that's been opened where there is just more and more light and colour and variety and texture and song and dance and words flowing out of it. And then on the other end of the spectrum is the robot. And the robot has been programmed just to do what the robot needs to do. And the robot has no texture. The robot has no emotion. The robot has no feeling. The robot has no empathy. The robot has no sensitivity. He's saying, what sort of world do you want your grandchildren to inherit? He said, because this isn't your scenario right now. We're just on the cusp of choice. He's saying we're on choice point time in terms of the way that humanity can go. He's saying, do you want a robotic scenario for your grandchildren? Do you want a robotic landscape for them? For the deadening of emotion, for the deadening of feeling, for the deadening of sensitivity, for them to become robotic because they live in a robotic world and are programmed to only like certain things, only watch certain things, only listen to certain things, to not think outside the box? Or do you wish for them the world which has got the multicoloured box, where everything is just an explosion of creativity and art and pleasure and love and fun and freedom? He says, I know which one I would choose for the world. And he says, I hope humanity makes the right choice. But humanity needs to wake up to being sleepwalked into this era of robotic motion. Okay, so he's saying because people are becoming robotic, they're becoming programmed to only respond to certain stimuli. And he's saying this is why the arts and the work of people like myself, although he's not bigging himself up at all, but, you know, is important because it reminds people of emotions that they have suppressed, that they feel as though they're not allowed to have in society, that there is no time, there is no space for. And Alan, you know, I've been talking in my work this week about the space for romance, the space for love in a world that is increasingly busy and bound by responsibility. And he says, yes, you're right to raise that. It's a really valid problem, which is that where is the space for love? Where is the space for the heart? That needs to be sought out at all times and at all costs in whatever life that you lead. Okay. I'm going to go back to your voice, Alan. I'd like you just to say something about your voice. Were you aware of the power of your voice when you were alive? He said it was a useful tool for me, for my job, certainly. I appreciated that others seemed to find it useful. He's very dry, you know, he's quite understated in how he speaks sometimes, although he goes from what he's just been talking about in terms of the flamboyant box to being quite dry. But that's the actor. He has all parts within him. He's saying, I know that my voice was useful for a range of parts. Was I aware of the fact that it had on others? He's like this, sort of, but, you know, it's not a big thing for him. It's just my voice, he said. It's like anything. It's just what you're used to. He said, having said that, actually, let me rethink. He's saying, we do all need to consider the beauty of the voice. And he says, he's showing me somebody with a very shrill voice. I am actually being shown this person. I'm not going to say who they are because it's going to trigger people, Alan, okay? I'm just going to say it's a politician, okay? And it's female. And this person has got a very shrill voice. And he's saying the problem is, even if you agreed with her message or she's got a message that is valid, people are put off by the voice. So he's saying in any area of life, really, and let's take this down now away from the political arena, which is one great big Shakespearean play, he's saying at the moment with a dry smile. He's saying, let's take it down into your everyday life. He's saying, think about a situation where maybe you have a discussion to have with your partner or with a child or with a boss, but there is a lot of heightened emotion around it. And you come into it shrieking and screaming like a banshee. And he's saying that's not going to achieve anything. He says people need to appreciate that they are actually in control of their voice, that the voice is a tool that can be trained. He says every great singer and every great artist knows this, that the voice can be trained, that the voice can be used for ill, the voice can be used for good. So he's saying, in your own life, if you have a situation that requires delicate handling, think about the tone of your voice. Think about the choice of words that are going to come out of your mouth. But what can people do to change? People can't change their voice though, Alan, can they? I mean, you were blessed with a very beautiful life. It was one of the gifts that God gave you. He's saying, yes, I appreciate that. He's saying everybody does have a beautiful voice. Hold on a minute, guys. He's saying something to me. I can't quite get the words. It's something along the lines of, it's like when you use your eyes and you either you can choose to see beauty and love in everything, and then you see that reflected back to you, so you become that. Versus you wake up every day and you expect to see misery, pain, you know, life serving up another dollop of, you know, crap, basically. And of course, then life does that for you. And it's like you then become that. So it's a bit like with the voice, he's saying, the more that you use the voice to express words of love, words of beauty, words of considered, words that are considered, words that are intelligent, words that have been thought through, then you see that reflected back at you, but you become that vibration. He's saying the voice carries a vibration. So what you express from it is what you then receive back, which is also what you then become. So he's saying a lot of people that have got nice voices are actually quite nice people. And he says that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. He says, of course, there are exceptions. But you take what he's trying to say there. Okay, let's go to some questions from some of you. So there are 130 questions here. Let's just have a look at what we've got. There was one great question. I mean, they're all great questions, but somebody asked about, have you met Metatron? Because basically Alan Rickman played Metatron in the film Dogma. Now, I didn't know that you'd played that at all, Alan, until somebody told me. So I went and looked at the clip where you appear at somebody's bed as Metatron. And actually, I need to just paraphrase here because those of you that are not on my Facebook page don't appreciate this story, which is a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, when I was thinking, well, suddenly Alan Rickman just came into my mind for some reason. I couldn't understand why. In fact, it was on the date that he died. It was on January the 14th, was it? The date that he died, anyway. Alan started to come into my awareness, and I was thinking, why have I got Alan Rickman around me? And that night, I think I'd had a health scare with my mum. Yeah, I'd had a health scare with my mum, and I'd asked Metatron to look after my mother that night. She maybe needed to go into hospital or something. I can't remember the whole scenario. But, you know, she lives on her own. I didn't know whether to go to her or not, if it was a false alarm, and I thought it probably was. But I said to Metatron, can you just be with her? And I was like, okay, said the prayer. And then I said to Metatron, I said, okay, well, I know you've heard it, but, you know, can't you just give me a sign that you're around me? And it was at night time. I was about to go to bed, and I checked my phone, and a message pinged in just to say there were more notifications on a video that I'd done. And one of you, thank you. At that moment when I had said to Metatron, can you just give me a sign that you're around? One of you sent me a message that said, have you ever seen Alan Rickman in Dogma? And it said, you've got to see this clip. And so I clicked on the clip, and it's Alan standing at the end of a woman's bed as Metatron. I was lying in bed asking for a sign. So it was like Alan and Metatron just both coming at me. So yeah, he played Metatron, and he did it with a sense of humour. Metatron's got a great sense of humour, so that didn't surprise me at all. But let's just ask Alan about meeting Metatron. What the hell was that like? I want to know as well. Okay, let me just use the Rainbow Bridge just to get the best, clearest connection I can here. Have you met Metatron? He said, of course I've met Metatron. Did you meet Metatron when you were filming the Dogma? He's saying, I understand now that Metatron was working through me. Absolutely. He says, I wouldn't have said that in life because I wouldn't have been necessarily aware of that in life. But as you know, Amanda, he says Metatron has many strands and is multifaceted and multidimensional, and is the greatest director there is of the show. And he says the show is life. He said, I work for some great directors, but he said Metatron takes some beating. Those of you that know about Metatron know that he's called the Grand Orchestrator. So there's that nod to the Grand Orchestrator and the Grand Architect. So Alan's calling him the Great Director. He says he's a great director. And he's saying you should see the size of Metatron's director's chair. He's showing me one of those Hollywood director's chairs, you know, with the canvas backing, which have usually got the name of the director on it. Well, Metatron's chair is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, Alan. It's just like this huge, gigantic director's chair, you know. He's saying, but he never sits on it anyway because he's too busy. He's too busy. Hold on, that's the dog. Is she going to settle down? He said, let her bark, it's fine. I feel that Alan quite liked animals. Okay. All right, let's just see about you and Metatron then. Your meeting with Metatron, when you crossed over to Spirit, Alan, Was Metatron one of the beings that was there to greet you? He says yes, yes. Hold on, guys. Sorry, when you're channeling, sometimes you can't just spit it out. You just got to tune in. Let me just feel into this. Meeting Metatron. He's saying the thing is, the human mind expects now to hear me say to you, oh yes, I met Metatron and he looked like this, you know, or he said this. He said, that's a very human thing. And I understand that. And he said, actually, that's very needed in life, because you need to humanize any angelic or indeed galactic frequency, because otherwise it's too mind-blowing to get your head around. Because actually what he's showing me in terms of meeting Metatron is just this enormous mountain. Okay, it's a mountain, okay, and it's the largest mountain I've ever seen in my life. It has no, I can't actually see the top of it, okay. So he's explaining it to me as this massive energy, okay. It's like a massive energy that is seated both in earth and in heaven. He's saying that it's like Metatron is like this pyramid who is both in earth and in heaven, which we know he is. And it's as though the bottom of the pyramid is in earth and the top of the pyramid is in what you would call heaven. He says, although we don't necessarily call that here, the other realms. And he said the thing is, it's not really so much about meeting a person or a shape or a winged being. It's about just standing in front of this almighty force, this almighty energy. And he's saying, and I did that, but he's saying it's like I couldn't see the top of it. I couldn't see the bottom of it. I could only actually see one particular facet of it. He's saying, even though we are souls now and we have passed over and we are spirit, please still understand that we are still a strand of the divine. And he's saying, even for us to see the full extent of an energy such as Metatron would be too overwhelming. Okay, there is this misconcept, it's not the right word, but there is this, there's a misunderstanding of when you pass to spirit, that straight away, you know, you see exactly what you're expecting to see. So for example, if you're expecting to see Metatron, there he is, as you expect to see him. And he says it in one respect that can happen, but he said I wanted to see all of him. I wanted to see all of him. And so for me to see all of him wasn't actually possible, because it would have blown my circuits even as a spirit. So he presented himself to me as the mountain. And he's saying to me, with my portrayal within Dogma, he said I just about got off base camp in terms of being able to convey his energy. And that's a serious point, okay? And, you know, Alan knows that Metatron is just this, as I say, multifaceted energy that you couldn't capture in one film. You couldn't capture in 10 films or 100 films. So he says, I didn't even try to. He said, but, you know, he's giving the analogy of the mountain. He's saying, I just about made it to base camp. You know, in terms of being able to capture something, I captured one aspect of him. He's saying he is the grand director, and he says, I have enormous respect for him and his energy. He's saying, although, again, him, it's not him, it's everything. It's male, it's female, it's young, it's old, it's light, it's dark, it's love, it's everything. It's everything. It's the sum of all parts. Okay. Right, let's get to some questions from some of you. Okay, I think I'll just have to go in. Elizabeth Lavoy, I just want to hear the message of love that he has for us. Delia, so looking forward to this. I could listen to him all day. I especially remember his wicked humour in Robin Hood. Did you enjoy playing that part in Robin Hood? He said, oh yes, I had a ball. What man doesn't wish to dress in tights? I don't think he did dress in tights. It's just, he has got a fantastic sense of humour. Jacqueline Masterson, I was so upset when he passed. Beautiful soul, his voice soothed. People were very, very sad when you died, Alan, and very shocked as well. It was very unexpected. Were you surprised at the outpouring of grief and love for you? Yes, he says, yes, I was, and I'm very humbled by that. He said it's a reminder, though, of the impact that anybody can make in one lifetime. And he says there are many, of course, that make just as much impact as me within families, within communities. They don't have to have their name in lights, you know. The impact that any one person can make is much more profound than anybody realises. And we should all be proud of the impact that we make. He did say to me a few weeks ago about his death that he gave me the analogy of encores. And he said, actors generally aren't very good at being able to say goodbye. He's saying with the exception of Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas is just past a spirit, and you know there's a nod there to the fact that Kirk hung on to 103 because he enjoyed the earth plane and he very much enjoyed his family, although of course Alan enjoyed the people he loved as well, but he wasn't meant to last that long. But the point is, he's saying a lot of actors don't like to say goodbye, and he again, it's like a bit jokey, but he sort of means it. He's saying that's why we always have encores. You know, so you know when you go and see a play and they come on for the encore and the curtain goes down and then you think, oh, you're just about to get up off your seat. And then the curtain goes back up and they all come back out for another round of applause, you know. And it can go on and on, actually, you know, encore after encore, curtain going up, curtain going down. So he's saying, yeah, you know, for me, very like Bowie, very like David Bowie, I just wanted a clean exit is what he's saying. I wanted a clean exit. I understood when I was diagnosed with the cancer that this was my time, that it was a waste of energy fighting it, that I was at peace with transitioning. There was a loss in terms of those that I was going to leave behind, and there was also a loss in terms of things that I still wanted to do, but I wanted a clean exit. Okay, I wanted a clean exit. And I also knew anyway, and he's referencing Truly, Madly, Deeply, that the soul anyway can revisit those that it loves. And there is always still a communion between people who have experienced a great love in their life. And here he's talking about Rita. But, you know, friends, colleagues, anybody that, you know, he particularly loved, it feels as though he can still be very close to them. And I have to say, of all the people that I've channeled, I find Alan's energy very approachable. He's very chatty. He's very friendly. He's very open. And I suspect, because I know the way this works now, because I've been doing these Heart Squad videos for a good year or so, is that I know the way it works now, which is basically when we open this up and we put this video out, more and more people will come forward and say, oh my goodness, Alan has just turned up. Alan's around me. Alan's trying to help me write the screenplay. Alan's around me trying to help me with my grief. Alan's around me trying to bring out my, you know, the creativity. Alan's around me trying to get me to look in the mirror and see my beauty, you know, all of that. So he feels as though he already is, and he's going to increasingly be a very accessible spirit guide to whoever wants him, okay? Sorry guys, I just haven't read Harry Potter, but he played, was he the headmaster or something like that? So, because I'm being shown now with the, like a mortarboard type thing, but he's obviously in a position of power. And I'm going to come back to that, Alan, because I want to do it justice and I want to have read the books. But it's as though he's the one that will get the students through their grades at whatever cost. And he's saying sometimes for the teacher to do that, they have to serve up a dollop of tough love. Okay, so he will, as a spirit guide, he will do that as well. He is one that is going to help bring out the artist in you, the poet in you, the musician in you, the talent in you. But equally, there is, I mean, don't forget, he turned up for this session with me with his notes. He'd done his research on me. So he expects you to put the work in as well, okay? And I feel like he's a bit of a stickler for I was going to say routine there, that just sort of came from nowhere, but equally for punctuality. Again, like today, and I was feeling like I'm not sure whether today's the day. And he's like, no, come on, the show must go on. We said we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You know, so it's like rise to the challenge. Put the work in. You know, he's I don't know whether he had Capricorn in his chart, because obviously I don't think he was a Capricorn. He must have been either an Aquarian or a Piscean in terms of his birth date, but I'm feeling like there's a very strong Capricorn energy there, and Virgo for some reason, in terms of work ethic. He's got a very good work ethic. Can you see him just there behind my shoulder, that white light? That feels very much him. Okay, let's go for some other questions. When I think of Alan, I feel warmth in my heart. He is the mirror of love, and I would say thank you, Alan. That's from Core Nietzsche, I think she's called. Oh, it was Tracy Merritt that asked the question about being Metatron. Have you had any fun conversations about your role as Metatron with Metatron? Yeah, because you've both got a sense of humour. So have you had any fun conversations with Metatron? Even though I know he's this amazingly huge force that you can't really get your head round or your eyes into, whether you're spirit or human. I get that as well. Any fun conversations with Metatron? Okay, well, it's not necessarily a fun conversation, but it's an interesting conversation. He's showing me the Emerald tablets. I have never read the Emerald tablets, I have to be honest. I know I should have done, but, you know, time is short. He is, Alan and Metatron are almost like trying to come up with, it's like they're sifting through files in terms of who down there on the Earth plane at the moment can help to make the Emerald tablets accessible to a new generation. Because it's one of those areas of spirituality and wisdom that is quite, I mean, one of the reasons I've not read it yet is it's like, I was like, oh God, you know, it feels like it's really hard work to get your teeth into the Emerald tablets. So, but Metatron obviously is linked into the Emerald tablets. So it feels as though they're trying to find somebody to take on the work. Maybe that's one of you watching me, okay? Maybe it's one of you. So it's more actually that I feel like Metatron and Alan are working together, which I suppose makes sense because he was the one that was chosen to be blinking Metatron in Dogma. So there's like this there's like a studious energy come in here, right? Please ask, knowing what you know now, Alan, what would you have done differently on Earth? You see, I think I answered that, Shona, within the clip that I played earlier, which was Alan was saying, you need to make sure, we all need to make sure that the choices we make in life are the right choices. And he was talking about creative choices, projects, things that we're going to invest our time in. Because he's saying time is the most precious commodity that you have on this planet. And you don't appreciate it when you're there, that time is limited, that time is the most precious commodity that you have. And yet so many people waste it, he's saying. They waste it. He's showing me the sands of time, and the sands of time sort of, they're always on the move. They're always, you know, the sands of time in terms of when you come into this life to when you leave, the sands of time are going through the hourglass. And if you could only see that, he said, my God, that would be like a bolt of lightning into people's life. They would choose the things that they really want to do, the things that have the most potential, the things that have the most worth. Okay, the things that you want to be remembered for. You know, forget all the other stuff that's unimportant. He doesn't mean by that the day-to-day duties and responsibilities. He's just talking about invest in what matters. Invest in what you want to be remembered for. Question from Mary Anderson, again going back to this him playing Metatron. Was his human self-resistance to doing the movie, given how controversial it is or was? He's answering that, Mary, along the lines of, and you understand this if you work with Metatron, and I know you do, as I do, which is that Metatron often brings things in that are ahead of their time. They're ahead of their time. And I mean, I'd never heard of the movie, and I'm a bit of a movie buff, but I'd never heard of it. And I work with Metatron. I've been working with Metatron since 2005 consciously. So I feel as though that movie, what Alan's showing me is in many ways, it's sort of, although it is known about, he said it didn't have the mass impact that it could have done, because it was a little bit ahead of its time. And he's saying if it was re-released now, he's saying, oh, that would be interesting. Because that would, he showed me feathers being ruffled, that would ruffle a few feathers, even now. He said, but when it was made, he said it was very, very ahead of its time. So he says, I think in many ways, I'm not feeling there was any fear from him. No, I don't feel that he had any fear in terms of any of the roles he played, actually. He's saying, I trusted the writer. So whoever the writer was of that film, whoever the producer and the director was, he felt there was a very good team there. Alanis Morissette was in it, wasn't she? You see, she was ahead of her time as well. Jagged Little Pill, when the album came out, even though it did have enormous commercial success, when you re-listen to it back now, it was so much about the divine feminine kicking some ass, basically, and saying, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm not putting up with that old patriarchy. I'm not putting up with that. I see my worth, and a bit of fury, women's fury. I've been talking about women's fury can change the world, not in terms of fighting and aggression, but just in terms of I'm worth more than that. Alanis was ahead of her day as well. She's still here, thank God. Let's see for a few more questions. What wisdom would Alan impart on us to cultivate more tolerance for equality and creativity in male-dominated corporate cultures, lacking freedom of creative expression and archaic patriarchal leadership? Insert humour, Clee Gigantes, okay. What wisdom, Alan, would you impart to cultivate more tolerance for equality and creativity in male-dominated corporate cultures? Patriarchal leadership. Okay, so we're going into how do we deal with this? Have compassion for the dying dinosaur, he's saying. Have compassion for the dying dinosaur. He's talking there about the dying male patriarchy in society. He's saying realise that you don't always have to take it on as well. What he means by that is he's showing me the plethora of different type of jobs that are arising as the decades flip through. He's showing me a calendar flipping through the decades. So this isn't to say that everybody has got this opportunity now in the country that they live where they're watching this. But as the decades flick through, as the years flick through, we get to a place, and in some places it's already here, and I would include the UK in this, where there are more types of jobs to choose so that you don't always have to go into a very male-dominated corporate structure. What he's really getting at is self-employment, okay? I mean, I'm self-employed. My husband is self-employed. I've got 2 daughters. I've always encouraged them really towards self-employment at some point in the future. So even if they do go into a male-dominated corporate structure to get experience, blah, 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 ultimately, I feel the way forward for a lot of the world is to do with, it comes into self-empowerment as well, that you have the ability to create a business. Everybody has the ability to create a business. Yes, that requires mentoring, that requires guardianship, that requires training and support. But I'm feeling as though what Alan is nodding towards, and he's saying, yeah, is the move away from these old, huge, big institutions, and they are male-dominated, towards what he's calling cottage industries. He's talking about cottage industries. But he's saying for cottage industries to thrive, of course, you need a sense of teamwork and a sense of being able to support each other. So he's saying one of the things that's needs to die off is this competitiveness at all costs. He's saying competition has a place to play in society. Of course it does. Competition can refine a business. It can refine a person, make them better. But he's saying not competition at all costs, not when it becomes ruthless in terms of I'm going to take you down, I'm going to take your ideas, I'm going to steal your ideas. He says that's not okay. So it's about, he's just shown me choice, to be honest. That's the answer to the question. It's as though, A, have compassion for the dying dinosaurs, which are these old patriarchal institutions which are going to fall, he's saying. And indeed, the old male patriarchy is going to die out. It is going to die out. He's saying it's going to die out much sooner than a lot of people realise it's going to die out. Literally, it's 2 generations and it's gone. He said it maybe much sooner than that. He's saying, look at the young men in your society. Look at the young men in your society. Look at your sons. Look at your grandsons. He's saying there is a shift happening. It's already here. He says it literally is. It's just needing to cycle out of the time frame that you're on as a society. But he's saying until that happens, realise that you have choice. There are choices. There's more choices than you realise. He says, but you narrow down your choices because you thwart your own talent and your potential through fear. So how can people get past their fear then, Alan? He's saying, you're talking to an actor, Amanda. He's saying we all had fear. Have you heard of stage fright? Stage fright. He's saying most of the great actors have stage fright, but yet they push themselves onto that stage and they do it. And they rise to the challenge and they realise they can do it. And it's by doing that that you realise that you can do it. He's saying fear can be a fuel that gets you onto the stage. He's saying the stage is your own life. What you do with it when you're on the stage is up to you. How you perform, what you put into it, whether you've done the research, whether you're doing it from the heart, whether you're doing it from the right place. So choice is always there. Let's have some water. 106. Okay, we'll just go for a little bit longer. Okay, this is a message from Wendy, who I think might have known you, Alan. Wendy Casalato. I look forward to this. I used to work at the Royal Shakespeare Company in London and saw him a few times in the course of my work. Not while he was performing there, but just visiting. He had an extraordinary presence, and I always felt his spiritual lineage or past would be interesting to know. Did the light just go on my camera then? He had an extraordinary presence and so she's asking about your spiritual lineage or past, as he feels like a very old soul and one who has known all the shades of existence in this human world. Some actors have an ability to express more than just the beauty of words, a way of getting to the soul of a character that makes you reflect on much deeper themes. Shakespeare's work does this too. He had that ability. Also, his role as Snape was an incredible telling of a redemption. In less sure hands, it might have been an arch or pantomime figure, but he made it something much more. I only wish I'd got to see more of his earlier stage work. He's saying, thank you, Wendy. His spiritual lineage. Has that gone dark? Can you still see me? Okay. Right, okay. Spiritual lineage, Alan, your past. Where do you want to start, he's saying? He is certainly a very old soul. It's like he goes way back. I'm actually almost wanted to say he goes way back into the void. It feels like he's been here forever. I know that's almost like him saying that. I feel like I've been here forever. Role after role after role. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Incarnation after incarnation after incarnation. Bow after bow after bow. In terms of... Hello, I'm back. My camera died. It's actually very useful just to have a little bit of a break when you're doing this work anyway. So it's quite good that the camera needs recharging every hour or so. Not that I'm going to go on for another hour. I'm probably going for another 10 minutes or so. And it was quite interesting because Alan's still here. He didn't go anywhere during the half-hour break we've just had. He was just sort of sitting, reading, actually. He was reading, which I know sounds crazy, but that's what I was showing him doing. He says there is a great big library of information in the spiritual world that is not available down on Earth. And so he said, I never exhausted all the great books there were to read when I was on Earth, but he said, never in a million years would I be able to exhaust the books that are up here. I actually feel that there's a bit of a nod to the Akashic Records going on, to be honest. I actually feel, I was saying, wasn't I, before the camera died, that it's like he's had lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, encore after encore after encore. And as mad as this sounds, what I'm feeling is that Metatron, who overlights all of the Akashic Records and is the one that governs that, it's almost as though Metatron has helpers with that whole process. And he has souls that help him oversee the Akashic Records. And I guess it would make sense that an old soul like Alan, who's virtually seen everything there is to see in terms of the earthly life, because he's had so many of them, may very well be privy to helping with that work. So I sort of get a feeling that's what was going on. But it was also just interesting energetically, because Alan was saying to me, he was saying, it's interesting watching you when the battery goes and the camera's off. He says, because what you're doing is you're staying in character. So he was aware that even though I was pottering around and I answered a couple of emails, actually, I was staying in the zone, is what he's saying. And so he said that's what he used to have to do as well. So when he was playing a part, playing a role, we all play roles the whole time through life, whatever our job is. You know, he would play the role through the day and then he'd go home and he would switch off to a degree, but it's like you never completely and utterly switch off because you're still in the zone. So it's quite interesting. That conversation came up because he could see that I was doing that. I was still in the space, even though I was sort of doing other stuff. I knew I was coming back to it, so I was keeping my energy there. He is very, very chatty. Just finishing off that thing about past lives with him and spiritual lineage, which I think is a really nice way to put it. What he was saying to me is I'm picking up two particular cultures around him. I mean, you know, this is a guy who's probably been everywhere on the planet and lived goodness knows how many lifetimes in all sorts of different places and eras. But he's showing me times that maybe we can relate to a little bit more, that are in our reference point. He's showing me an Italian, he has an Italian heritage. Not necessarily when he was Alan Rickman, but, you know, an Italian spiritual lineage, which feels as though it links back to the Italian Renaissance, which was where, you know, great art was produced in particular. I do feel he had a life as an artist, and I suspect it was probably an Italian artist. Although he also sort of, not reprimanded me, that's saying it too strongly, but sort of told me off a little bit, because when I was going back trying to find a past life for him, he was saying, why do people always want to look for the person that's been famous? Why can't I just have been alive during the Italian Renaissance? And I may very well have been a painter. He was a painter. But it doesn't mean that I have to have been one of the greats, okay? So that's a fair point, isn't it? It's a very fair point when the question is asked, who were you in a past life? And we always want to sort of hear, oh, they were whatever, you know, a recognizable name. And the reality is, what he's saying is that an old soul, a person that has had many multiple lifetimes, which he has, many of those lifetimes, in fact, he says the majority of those lifetimes our lifetimes work, which were not about fame, which were not about stardom, which were not about being well known. They were about ploughing the fields, or, you know, gathering in the harvest, or, you know, doing whatever needed to be done in that particular time. And he said there is so much rich learning in, you know, what some people call an ordinary life, but he's saying no life is not extraordinary. So anyway, Italian Renaissance period I'm picking up with him. And I'm picking up a British lineage. I mean, obviously he was British, but he's taken me back to Arthurian times. So the legends of King Arthur. I'm not quite sure what part he played, but that's as far as I can get with that. He's being a little bit mysterious. Okay, so I'm just feeling Arthurian energy around him. It's almost like the round table type energy, you know. I feel as though he was certainly of high rank, okay, in that particular lifetime. Okay, we were also having a little chat about professionalism, and he was always a real stickler for professionalism. That was part of the thing about, no, we must do this today because you've said you're going to. I mean, I always do show up anyway. I am a professional person, but again, it feels as though there's a nice synergy in our levels there, in our energy levels there, in terms of I try always to be professional and turn up, and he was the ultimate professional as well. Okay, I'm going to end with that one. Let's go to another question. Okay, I'm going to this one is from Robin Thompson, and it goes back to his voice. I would love to hear about healing with the voice in general. Do some people like him come here with different frequencies in their voice that enables them to heal others or convey some sort of codes or tones to others? What can we do with our voices? 100% yes, okay? Even though what he was saying earlier about the voice, in terms of you can, your voice can vibrate at a different frequency based on actually how you use it and when you use it and how effectively you use it. And, you know, if you've got a potty mouth, you know, in terms of swearing the whole time, or, I don't know, being vile to people and attacking people and spouting hate, then your voice will start to vibrate with that frequency. It isn't just the words, it's actually the tone will become that. Having said, so we all can improve the vibration of what comes through our voice by the quality of what we're saying, how we're saying it from the right place, from the heart, etc. Also saying it with intelligence. But yes, having said that, you see, the thing with Alan is he's very much into equality. He's quite liberal. That's okay to say that, isn't it, Alan? Yeah, he's quite a liberal man. I think his politics were probably very liberal. He's very much into equality for all. So it's quite hard for him when I'm sort of saying to him, it's like he wants to come through and say, no, all voices are equal. But I'm wanting to challenge him and saying, no, Alan, your voice was unique. Your voice was something special. It's almost like, I want you to claim that. And there still seems to be this sort of resistance with him, which is like, no, it was nothing special. It was. So, because he really does see, and this is the energy of a very highly evolved soul, which is what he is. He sees the beauty in everybody's voice. But I'm still going to come and say to him, I still feel there are some voices that are more healing. Can you talk a little bit about that? Okay. Some voices that are more healing. That's a really interesting point. He's saying, what is healing? So, for example, you might resonate with somebody's voice that actually reminds you of somebody else, whether in this life or in a past life. And that person might have triggered the hell out of you, or that person might have been the one that, you know, you loved unconditionally or still do love. And so healing can happen on many different levels. The voice that can trigger you actually can be the voice that also takes you into great depths of processing and integrating and looking at whatever it's bringing up. So say, for example, he's given me the energy of say you hear somebody's voice and it reminds you of your father, okay? And your father was somebody who you had a very difficult relationship with and who treated you very badly. And then you hear somebody's voice who's quite similar, or they use the same sort of tone, or they use the same sort of language or the same sort of words. That can trigger you, and you don't even quite know what it is about. You just think it's them, but it's not. It's the memory of the father that's coming through the voice. So you can either do something with that or not. And when I mean do something with it, it can be about realizing that you're actually listening to the voice of your father, even though you're listening to Joe Bloggs down the road, and take that as a tool to do some inner work in terms of, okay, why is this stirring me up here? What do I need to heal with regard to my father? And in the same way, you can hear somebody else's voice who reminds you of, I don't know, a great love, or somebody, or they express things in a certain way, use the same language, and it takes you back to a time where you feel very comfortable and very warm and very supported. So he said there are voices for all seasons. There are voices for all seasons, and there are voices for all purposes. There are voices to stir, there are voices to incite, there are voices to calm, there are voices to soothe. He says the truth is, within every single voice box, within every single person's ability to speak or create sound, there is the ability for all of it. But it's just that people tend to zone in on one or two different strands of what their voice is capable of. Does that answer the question? Quite interesting, I think, that. Let's just have one more question. I didn't know this, that you were in a video in the 80s or 90s, Alan, with the song, with Texas, the band Texas. So he's in a video called In Demand. I didn't know that. Frederic Deroy. I'll have to watch that one later. Did you have fun making that? He said, yeah, I always had fun when I was working. I had fun, whatever the genre. So whether it was a short video, a music video, whether it was a sequence of movies such as Harry Potter, where the story went on and on and on, whether it was just a short film, he said, I always had fun. Francis, I would like to know what role he felt was most rewarding. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan as well, so if you could ask what he liked about his role. I'm going to come back to Harry Potter another time. I just can't get away from this energy which he has, which is there is a word for it, where everything's equal, because it's like he learnt something from every single role, and that's the thing with a highly evolved soul. They realise that there is something to learn from everything. And if you put your heart and soul into every piece, and you put yourself into every piece and your essence into every piece, which is absolutely what he did, then how can you say one piece of you is better than another? One role was better than another. He's very like that. That's very much his sort of response. Because it goes back to that clip that I chose to play you of his voice. Make the right choices so that everything you do, and in his case it was choosing roles as an actor, he had a career before acting, but I'm just talking about his acting, was a role that he wanted to do. He chose wisely. Was it your higher self that chose those roles? Yeah, I think it was, he says. I think it was. Let's have one more. Was he secretly evil? He played evil well. He was gay, wasn't he? That's a very strange question. Okay, I don't think you mean it in the way it's coming through. Well, no. Anyway, his sexuality is, none of anybody's business anyway, but was he secretly evil? Should we just pass over that? I think we'll pass over that one because... No. Okay, I didn't edit the questions. Let's have another good question. Let's go to what the most recent question was. It's the only fairest way to do it, because they're still coming in, Alan. Newest. I love him. Jan Griffiths, I love him. Yeah, okay. Should we talk a little bit about love, Alan? It is Valentine's Day. It is Valentine's Day. And you are known for the role Love Actually. What do you want to say on Valentine's Day? He wants to send love to his wife. Yeah, absolutely, which is what you should be doing. Well, not should. What's what I would expect you to be doing, Alan, because there's just this loyalty to her, this love for her, the journey of love with her, and all that was learnt and experienced, and how proud he is of her. And I feel quite emotional just linking into how he feels about his wife. They did it their way, is what he's saying. They did it their way. We did it our way. And just immense pride for her. Okay. Taking it away from that then, Alan. He's saying it's hard to take it away from that because it's like I'm feeling it in my throat. I'm feeling like a stuck energy in my throat. I feel as though maybe there were things that he wished he'd said to her that he didn't. I don't know whether maybe he was somebody that even though he played all these roles on the stage, maybe in terms of one-on-one relationships, sometimes he didn't always find it as easy without a script that had been written for him. That's what I want to say. Is that fair to say, Alan? And he's saying that's probably true of most actors, yes. And a lot of musicians. He's saying we pour our emotion into our work and then the people we live with can get shortchanged sometimes. So the fact that all these women adore me and love me, he said it's very flattering and humbling. He said, but it's not with regret because I feel he treated her well, but it's just this, there's a pain of separation with him and her from his perspective. I'm sure there is from her perspective as well. There is a pain of separation. He's got like a lump in his throat when he thinks about her. So we'll just send you some healing for that, Alan, because what I've observed with the channeling work that I've done is that all these people that come forward, they all have aspects that still require healing. And I feel on Valentine's Day, actually, he finds it hard to be apart from her. He said we had 50 years where we were together. So he said it's, 2016 is when he died. There hasn't been a lot of time to get used to being without her. He said, although I'm not really without her, she's still within me and I am still within her. And he's saying, this is true for any great love that you've had in your life, that they may pass, they may die, but yet love can never die. Love can never die. Love transcends lifetimes. Love transcends situations. Love transcends illness. Love transcends separation. Love transcends all boundaries, all barriers. Love is all there is, and I have great love in my heart for my wife, and I have great love in my heart for humanity, and I have great love in my heart for anybody that is experiencing the pain of loss and grief and not being with the one that they love. But know that any separation is temporary, and that those that really love hold the greatest prize of all, and it never truly dies. And he's giving me the impression here that in his human life as Alan Rickman, although I feel he was very warm and funny and loving, a big outburst of emotion like that, because those were his tears really coming through. They weren't my own, although he touched my heart, which is why I was feeling tearful. He didn't do that all the time, So he says we have a lot of time to reflect up here, and time to look back, and yes, a time to mourn. But yet there is so much here that is rich and varied and beautiful, just as there is in life. He says heaven is a reflection of earth. As above, so below. Heaven and earth are one. And so there's a little bit of everything in every single realm. And okay. So who do you like to spend time with up there then, Alan? I have no idea what he's showing. I don't even know who this is. He's shown me somebody who is kicking a ball around. Whether they're a footballer or whether they're just somebody who's kicking a ball around, I'm not sure who that is. I don't get the impression that Alan Rickman played football, did he? Or liked football? Maybe he did. I don't know. Why am I saying football for some reason? God knows. Almost something along the lines of doing things that he didn't do on Earth. Because he says, I'm an inquisitive spirit. I am an inquisitive soul. You knew me as Alan, and we're talking about film and my love of that. But he says there are so many different parts of me, and who's to say, and this is like he's being a bit cheeky and wanting to leave a question mark in the air, who is to say that I wasn't a very good sportsman in another life? Good point. Touche. It's an obvious one, I know, but I do keep being drawn to Shakespeare with Alan Rickman, and that's going to be for another time. Francis Bacon, was he Shakespeare? Is there a thing about Francis Bacon being Shakespeare? I'm not sure. We're going to do that another day, Alan. To be honest, he's somebody that's universally liked wherever he is, whichever realm he ends up on. You know, whether he's here on Earth and he comes back or whether he stays where he is, he's universally liked. So it's not like he's alone up there. But I do get this sense of him being a bit of a loner. And there's a difference between being a loner and being alone. Somebody who is a loner is okay with their own company. Okay, they're okay with their own company. And again, I think it ties into being an older soul, because I feel that as you go through many lifetimes and you evolve, you become more at peace with yourself. And when you are more at peace with yourself, you're more at peace with being present with yourself. So I'm sensing him enjoying that space of peace within himself. He feels very at peace within his own soul. Right. I am going to wrap this up now, because I could just go on and on and on, and we're going to come back another time. And he did say to me to do this in parts, okay, part 1 and part 2, because we haven't even touched on history or culture or beauty. And I wanted to do that. I'm going to leave you with a brilliant quote from him. Linked 2 things actually I want to read out about storytelling and the power of storytelling. These are Alan's words, okay? This is a famous quote. He says, "And it's a human need to be told stories. The more that we are governed by idiots and have no control over our destinies, the more we need to tell stories to each other about who we are, why we are here, where we came from, and what might be possible." I love that one. And then I've just found this as well earlier, and I'm going to read this to you. This was an interview that he did with an Irish newspaper. And it says, "Some people are meant to be actors, and thank God for that. If we didn't have a culture that wanted to tell stories about itself, to itself, then I think we'd all be in the loony bin. I think it's a way of staying healthy. They know about that in Tunisia. They have storytellers in the marketplace. People gather around while somebody makes up stories. We all go to the movies because we want to forget something. We want to sink into once upon a time." The theatre, and this next bit is very much what I was saying, or he was saying through me earlier, and I've just read this. It says, "The theatre shouldn't be quite so romantic as that. It is about holding up a mirror to nature. It should be about shockers and making us think and change. It condenses our lives into an hour and a half. You can feel rusty old metal gears clicking into action, and it's thrilling as an actor to be a part of that. What he's also showing me linked into that, he's saying, I remember saying that, is think about children. One thing about children is they all want to be told stories. Read me a story, Mum. Read me a story, Dad. And then, they lose that desire. But he's saying be a bit more like that. Take a note from children and their hunger to be told a story. He's saying you still have that hunger within you. Make sure that the stories that you're telling each other are good ones. Make sure that they are stories that are inspiring you with hope, or helping you to heal. But let the storytelling be both magical and that which makes a difference to the world. And he's saying it's the antithesis of gossip. Okay, he's saying gossip isn't a story. Okay, gossip is a lower energy. Storytelling is an art, and it's why the best stories have been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And he says, in my life as Alan Rickman, I was blessed to be able to demonstrate that and pass that on to others. And for that, I am grateful. He's saying, thank you. I love you all. And I will be back soon. Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much for your time today. So much enjoyed being in your energy. Such a interesting man, interesting soul. And we'll come back, shall we? Yeah, okay. Much love. Thank you, Alan. So he's just sort of walking back, and he's just walking back. Yeah, I can see. Just let him go out of view. Okay. Much love, everybody. I'll get this uploaded. Happy Valentine's Day. If you're watching this on Valentine's Day, if you're not, let every day be a bit like Valentine's Day. Let a bit more love into your life. Much love. Bye. I told you that Alan said that an actor always has an encore. He's so funny. As you can see, I've got changed. I'm downstairs making soup for lunch, and I think the video is done. And he said, you didn't give them a song for Valentine's Day. He's given me a song for all of us. There is a nod to his wife as well, Rita. But this is for all of the lovers out there, all of those who believe in love, and what he was saying about love transcending ages and lifetimes. And the song that you can go away and listen to now is, anybody guess it? It's Christina Perri, 1,000 Years. Hearts beat fast, colours and promises, how to be brave, how can I love when I'm afraid to fall? But watching you stand alone, all of my doubt suddenly goes away somehow. One step closer, I have died every day waiting for you. Darling, don't be afraid. I have loved you for 1,000 years, and I'll love you for 1,000 more. Wow, just go and listen to the song. It's just a beautiful song. So that's Alan's gift to us this Valentine's Day. And he's also saying, cherish the memories. Cherish the memories that you have of those that you've loved, those that you do love. And also, if you're still able to, and they're still with you, and you have the opportunity, create memories for the future. Okay. The curtain is now coming down on this video, Alan. He's waving. Bye, guys. Bye. Okay, this is funny. This is the last curtain call. He's doing exactly what he said actors do, because they're never any good at saying goodbye. And if you've watched this far in this video, he was talking about the curtain comes down, you get a round of applause, everyone's about to go, then they come back out. So this really is his final encore. He just has made me come back on for the third time to say, because this is Alan, he doesn't want to end with us feeling sad, okay? Because the Christina Perri song is a little bit sad, particularly for those that have lost. He's going back to football. And he's telling me that, yes, he did like football in this life. Okay, he was a football fan. Okay, so he had a love for that as well. So do what you love, okay, in all senses of the word. That is it. Over and out. Bye.